You ever bought a budget-friendly car lift online, only to wrestle with wobble, squeaky hydraulics, and a whole lot of frustration when you finally get it out of the box? I've seen that story play out enough times to know the warning signs: a cheap kit that looks fine on paper, but then you're stuck sanding the floor, praying the lift won't tip, and scrambling for extra bolts you never knew you needed. That's why today I'm diving into the Bendpak XPR 12CL 12,000 pounds Clearfloor 2-post lift and figuring out if it's the smarter, safer, and more practical buy for shop owners or serious DIYers. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about the hesitation that pops up the moment you start scrolling for a lift that can actually hold a full-size truck or a heavy sedan. The biggest risk is assuming all lifts are created equal. A 12,000-pound rating sounds impressive, but it doesn't tell you how the lift actually behaves when you're trying to jack up a classic Mustang for a brake job, or a lifted truck for a suspension upgrade. The XPR 12CL promises a Clearfloor design, meaning the lift sits directly on a concrete slab without a dedicated pit. That's a huge convenience if your shop space is limited, but it also raises questions about floor protection, load distribution, and how easy it is to move the unit if you ever need to rearrange a workspace. What I found most compelling about this model is its modular approach. The frame is built from high-strength steel that's been hot-rolled and welded, which gives it a solid, monolithic feel once it's bolted down. The lift's two posts are independent, each with its own hydraulic cylinder, meaning you can raise one side of a car slightly to give yourself extra clearance for a tire change without lifting the entire chassis. In real-world shop scenarios, that kind of flexibility can shave minutes off a job and reduce the risk of overloading a single cylinder. People who run multi-car bays or need to service a mix of passenger cars, small trucks, and even light commercial vehicles will appreciate that adaptability. On the flip side, that flexibility comes with a trade-off in terms of floor prep. Because the Clearfloor design distributes weight across a set of 4-foot pads, you really need a level, sturdy concrete slab that's at least a few inches thick. If your shop floor has any unevenness, or if you're on a raised slab that's not anchored, you could see some rocking when the lift reaches its higher limits. That's not just a nuisance, it's a safety issue. So if you're operating in a garage with a wood subfloor, a concrete overlay, or an older slab that has cracked, this lift might not be the best match. In those cases, a traditional pit lift or a model with a broader base might be worth the extra investment. Another practical strength lies in the lift's hydraulic system. The XPR 12CL uses a closed-loop hydraulic circuit with a pump that can be powered either by a 120V AC source or a 12V DC input, which is handy for mobile shops that rely on a generator. The flow rate is decent enough to get a full lift in under a minute, and the controls are simple: one button for each post, a foot pedal for fine adjustments, and an emergency stop. I've watched technicians who aren't hydraulics experts operate it without a manual, and the learning curve seems shallow. For a busy garage that needs to get cars in and out quickly, that ease of use translates into real productivity gains. However, the hydraulic system does have an annoyance that seasoned mechanics will recognize. The pump can be a bit noisy when it's ramping up, especially if you're working in a tightly enclosed space. It's not a deal-breaker, but if you're installing this in a small shop where sound levels matter, say, a home garage shared with a family, you might want to budget for a sound-dampening enclosure or a quieter pump upgrade down the line. Also, the lift doesn't come with a built-in oil filtration system, so you'll need to change the hydraulic fluid regularly to avoid grit buildup, which can affect the smoothness of the lift over time. Now, who should actually consider buying this lift? If you're a hobbyist who only occasionally works on a single vehicle, you might find a smaller 6,000-pound lift cheaper and more than sufficient. But if you run a small to mid-size shop that sees a variety of vehicles daily, think a street performance garage, a tire shop that also does alignment work, or a custom-build shop that needs to raise both cars and light trucks, this 12,000-pound rating gives you enough headroom to handle most projects without worrying about maxing out the capacity. The dual-post design also appeals to businesses that need to rotate cars quickly, as you can lift one corner, work on a tire, lower that side, and then repeat on the opposite side without moving the entire vehicle. Conversely, if your primary focus is on high-end exotic cars that